You have a Jew and an Akum, who are partners in sharecropping a field belonging to a Jew. Sahano Morikai David Kochavim Nakit B'Shabsa, V'Yisrael Bechad B'Shabsa. So we'll say ultimately again there were these two saffron farmers. Now remember again, they were joint sharecroppers. So the Akum decided to go in and work the field on Shabbos, and the Yisrael worked the field on Sunday. They worked the field on Sunday. So what happened? So Asula Kamei de Rava, so it was an interesting case. Afterwards, they came to Rava to ask if this arrangement was permitted or not. Here you have the non-Jew taking, the Akum taking Shabbos, the Yisrael taking Sunday. Is this arrangement good or not? So the Gemara says, Asula Kamei de Rava, they come before Rava. Sharlu, Rava says, yes, it's permitted. Esfer Ravina the Rava. So Ravina raised the kasha to Rava. Yisrael va'ovid kocham shekibu sada b'shutvus. If Yisrael and ovid kochavim received a field b'shutvus, which Rava say means they are partners in sharecropping a field. Lo yomar Yisrael ovid kochavim. The Yisrael cannot say to the Jew, Tol chelkecha b'Shabbos va'ani b'chol. Listen, you take your portion on Shabbos, and I'll take my portion on a weekday. We'll say, now what does this mean? Take a look at Rashi. Shekiblu, Sadeh ba'arisusami balabayis. So we'll say, so now you have Yisrael and then Akum, who received a joint sharecropping arrangement from Shleim Nasach B'Yachas. So we'll say, the way this works is, both of those sharecroppers are 50-50 partners in the entire field, which means that they both have a joint responsibility every moment of every day. That's their joint responsibility. So what happens? Rashi says, Lo Yomar Yisrael, Tol Ata Chelkecha B'Shabbos, Lefi Shena'asa Shlucho Achatzi Hayom Mutal. So we'll say, the way it works on a technical level is, let's assume for a moment the field needs to be worked every single day. So what happens? We'll say. So if you have two sharecroppers, Jew and Akum, what happens? So the Jew has responsibility for half of the day. The Akum has responsibility for half of the day. If the Jew says to the Akum, you take Shabbos, I'll take Sunday. We'll say, what does that effectively do? That effectively says, now Shabbos, 50% of Shabbos is the Jew's responsibility. He's now delegated that responsibility to who? To the Akum, which means that the Akum is his shaliach for working on Shabbos. Even though it is not the Jew who is actively doing the work on Shabbos, but the Akum is operating as the Jew's agent for that work on Shabbos. That is just as it's not, when I say just as problematic, it means it is problematic. Obviously, I will say it's different if my shaliach does work for me on Shabbos than if I go ahead and do it myself, but it is prohibited regardless. So the idea over here is that Ravina is saying to Rava that a Jew is not, once a Jew has a joint sharecropping arrangement with a Gentile, a Jew can't go ahead and swap shifts with the Gentile or with the Akum, because the Akum is effectively working on behalf of the Jew. However, v'hem hisnu metchila, but I will say there is a way to do this. What's the way to do this? Hisnu metchila means, so listen to this. Let's say Jew and Akum know that they are about to receive a sharecropping contract from Jewish owner. We'll say if before the sharecropping arrangement is made, they agree between the two of them, between themselves, that what? You'll take Shabbos, I'll take Sunday, Rabbi say. That works. Why? Look at Rashi. Mutter. Dahalo kibel ale Yisrael the Shabbos. Ve'ina oved kochavim shluchos. Rabbi say, here's the issue. Have a 50. Each of them has a 50% responsibility for each day. Then for the Jew, that means he has responsibility. He has responsibility for 50% of Shabbos, which means that now when he subsequently swaps with the Akum is working as his shaliach for the Jews' 50% of Shabbos. However, if before the sharecropping arrangement actually was made, the Jew says to the Akum, listen, before this is made, we agree, your Shabbos is yours, Sunday is mine. So therefore, since that arrangement was made before the sharecropping arrangement ever devolved upon them, therefore, ultimately, again, the Jew never acquired a 50% work obligation on Shabbos. So we'll see here the distinction. Once the sharecropping arrangement is made, the Jew acquires a 50% obligation for each and every day. When he assigns that 50% obligation to the Akum is working on his behalf. Masha'en came. if the Jew mitchila assigns Shabbos to the Akum before he ever acquires a 50% obligation in the day, that assignment effectively goes in and removes any Shabbos interest from the Jew, in the same way that the assignment removes any type of Sunday Yom Rishon interest to the Akum. So in Hisnu Mitchila Mutter, in Ba'al Cheshbon, so now watch this. Now working forward, in Ba'al Cheshbon, means, look at Rashi, right across in Rashi, in Ba'al Cheshbon, Lav Ahisnu Mitchila Koyin. This is not referring to the case of where they arranged. They made this arrangement. Kiblu stam, va'asu stam, va'ayela oved kochavim b'Shabbos, va'as v'Yisrael b'chol, v'lo tzivo Yisrael. So we'll say this is now a third case. We'll say in this third case is there was no arrangement. There just was no arrangement. It just happened to work out that what? That the Akum worked on Shabbos and that the Yisrael worked on Sunday, but there was no pre-made arrangement. So the Gemara says, "V'lo tzivo Yisrael ubol lecheshbon la'achar zman, lomar kama yemei Shabbos natalta ani va'ani etol kinegdan achol." What happens? There was no pre-cheshbon that was made. Now what happens? They're coming to settle up, and now when they're coming to settle up, so the Akum's discussing how many Shabbosos he worked. The Yisrael's discussing how many Sundays he worked. So we'll say in this case over here, Aser. Ultimately, again, this is Aser. And we'll say now, why will this be Aser? Because at the end of the day, if the Yisrael is taking the corresponding Sundays to the Shabbosos that the Akum worked, I will say, what does that show? That shows that the Yisrael also has an interest in the Shabbos Malacha. It's just that, again, the Akum was working as his Shaliach. So I'll say, so bottom line over here, it turns out that Rava ruled erroneously. Remember again, what happened over here? The Jew and the non-Jew were partners in the sharecropping the field of the Yisrael, the saffron field. What happens? The Jew worked on Sunday, the Akum worked on Shabbos. They now came to Rava to say, by the way, is this arrangement mutter? Rava said yes. Ravina quotes the Brisa Rabosai, and the Brisa seems to indicate that this type of arrangement is us. In other words, they had no pre-arrangement. They're now coming to make their cheshbonis. The Brisa says explicitly that such an arrangement is in fact usher, to which the Gemara says ichsif. Rava was embarrassed. Why was Rava embarrassed? Rabosai? Because he ruled incorrectly. He made a mistake in his psak halacha. The sof igloi milsa. And interestingly enough, as the matter progressed, it became clear the hisnu meikarav. So ultimately, again, I will say that's what? That in fact, this was a different kind of case. That this was a case of where the sharecroppers made an arrangement before the actual sharecropping agreement was made. So we'll say, so in other words, what happened over here? That Jew and Akum, they knew that they were going to be awarded, so to speak, their sharecropping contract. So what did they decide between the two of them? Before the contract was awarded, Jew said, "I'll take Sunday." Akum said, "I'll take Shabbos." So we'll say, what's the status of such an arrangement? What's the status? It's mutter. We'll say, remember again, why is it mutter? Because at the end of the day, what we just said before is as follows. If the Jew assigns the Shabbos interest before the Shabbos interest ever becomes his, that's fine. So it turns out at the end of the day, that was the case over here. So it turns out that what? That Rava's psak was in fact correct. That ultimately again, that Rava ruled correctly when he said that this arrangement was mutter. Rav Gavia mi Beik Seal, supposed to Rav Gavia of Beik Seal, he had a different version of this case. Amar, he said this case was Hano, these sharecroppers, they were not saffron farmers, rather Shesile Da'ar Lahava. They were planting orla. Now, what does it mean they were planting orla? I was supposed to say they were planting saplings. So what's the issue over here? So Ovid Kochavim, Achil Shnei Orla, V'Yisrael Shnei Tehatera. What was the arrangement they had? For the first 3 years of the crop, remember it's orla, the Jew can't eat it. So the arrangement was as follows. The Akum would eat for the first 3 years. He would eat the fruit of the first 3 years, the orla years, which the Jew can't. And the Jew would eat the crop of the second 3 years. So look at Rashi also for just a moment. Rashi says, Ela Shesile Da'ar Lahava, Yisrael V'Ovid Kochavim, Kiblu Sada B'Shutvas. Yisrael V'Ovid Kochavim received a field in Shutvas. V'nota V'yitlu Achatzi Ben Shneim. Sharlu, Rashi says, the Heter Gomer Hava, Ta'afagav v'kiblu yachal lechatchila v'amar lo Yisrael haya ata oved gimel b'shanim halalu fani gimel achareim ein kan iser shlichus the Yisrael nami shari la'ovda v'mishum achila she'Yisrael achal connected because there is no issue with working the field during the early years. So in this case, Rava said, this arrangement is totally permitted. The Akum could work the field in the first 3 years, eat the fruit of the first 3 years, even though, again, it's a shutfus with the Yisrael. And the Yisrael can't eat the fruit the first 3 years. There is no prohibition, ultimately, again, of working the land during the early years. The arrangement, therefore, is permitted. So we'll say, so just want to point out, Rav Gavia had a different version of the case with Rava. See, in the first version, there were 2 saffron farmers who were coming along, or I should say 2 saffron sharecroppers, a Jew and an Akum. And again, they arranged amongst themselves. The Jew would take Sundays, the Akum would take Shabbosos. They came before Rava. Rava says the arrangement is mutter. Ravina raises a kasha on Rava. How can you say it's mutter? It's not true. It's an explicit brisa that it's usher because the Akum is effectively working as a shaliach for the Jew in the 50% of the Jewish interest on Shabbos, or the Jewish obligation on Shabbos. So the Gemara interpreted the case to be, it must be a case where ultimately, again, they agreed from the beginning. Before they were even joint sharecroppers, they agreed to divide Shabbos and Sunday, and therefore there was never a Jewish interest on Shabbos to begin with. Okay? Rav Gavina comes along and says, no, you get the case wrong. The case is where 2 sharecroppers came before Rava, but the case has nothing to do with Shabbos. The case was Orla, and the arrangement they made was the Akum farmer would work the fields for the first 3 years and eat the crop. The Jewish farmer would work the field for the second 3 years and eat the nan or the produce. And Rava said, it's mutter. And Rava said, guess what? Totally mutter. To which the Gemara said, well, 1 second. It doesn't make sense with the rest of the story. So it says the Gemara, "Ha'osei Ravina l'Rava." But 1 second, Ravina raised the kasha on Rava, and he brought the brisa from Shabbos. To which the Gemara says, you're right. The Gemara says, "Ha'osei Ravina l'Rava l'seyue siya." We'll say Ravina actually brought that brisa, and Ravina brought the brisa to Rava, not to contradict him, I will say, but rather what? To actually help him, to support him. How was the brisa supported? We'll say, look at Rashi. L'seyue siya mediktani hisnu lechatchila mutar alma ki leka iser shlichos demalacha shari. So we'll say, why is the brisa support? Because the brisa says the only time that there's an iser in the shutfas Rabbosai is when the Akum is clearly working as a shaliach for the Yisrael, like in the case of Shabbos. But in this case over here as Orla, where the Akum is not working in any capacity as a shaliach of the Yisrael, ultimately again, the arrangement is totally mutter. So in fact, Ravina wasn't asking a kasha on Rava, but Ravina was bringing the brisa of Shabbos as a support to Rava. But the Gemara said before that Rava became embarrassed when Ravina raised his kasha. Lo hayu dvar me'olam. I said that was a mistake. That was a mistake. Those words should have never been in the Gemara. That simply did not happen. Okay, so we'll say, so obviously, this conversation actually happens to be one that's a fascinating halachic one. And I will say, a person has to be aware of these halachos, especially if a person has a business and a person has non-Jewish partners. So again, especially if a person does have a business that operates on Shabbos and Yom Tov, there are halachically sound ways in which a person could assign ownership interests ultimately again to a Gentile partner. But I both say it's not as simple as saying, hey, you cover Shabbos and I'll cover Sundays. It's obviously you can see it's much more complicated than that. Because the Maisa, again, if there's still Jewish ownership interests on Shabbos, then the Maisa, again, there's a problem ultimately again with the Akum working on Shabbos. That's why I both say again, without getting into technicalities, if a person does have a business that operates on Shabbos and Yom Tov, in order to mamish avoid serious isurim, a person has to have what's called a shtar mechira. A shtar mechira ultimately is a shtar that assigns ownership interest, full ownership interest of a business to a non-Jew over the course of Shabbos and Yom Tov. Again, I'm simplifying a little bit more. It's not a complicated process, but l'maisa again is something that has to be understood. Because again, people often think that as long as the Jew's not working on Shabbos and the Gentile, the Akum, or it has to be Akum, the Gentile is that Shalom, it's not true issues. Simar goes weiter. Tashma, Ibaylu, Stama Mai. So also listen to this interesting case. What about Stama? So also look at Rashi for just a moment. Rashi says, the Akum sharecropper, they received a field to work jointly. I should say they jointly received the field. But Stam, we'll say without any prior arrangement, Shekiblu Stam, Va'asu Stam, Ovi Kochavim B'Shabbos, V'Yisrael B'Chai B'Shabbos, V'lo Amar Yisrael Me'olam Tol Atas HaShabbos V'ani B'Chol, Ma'u Lachlok Stam B'Shav Lo Yaski Yisrael Shabbos. So we'll say, listen to this case. Yisrael and Akum are joint sharecroppers. They never made any previous arrangement. They never spoke about you take Shabbos, just the way it turned out is that the Akum ended up going ahead and working every Shabbos and Yom Tov. The Yisrael ended up working every other day, right? And I will say, but they never made any kind of formal arrangement. They never arranged it. So now what happens? They come to divide up. But that was the way, the point I was making is, there was never any arrangement, nor did anyone ever speak about it. It's just the way the days were never any step. I own a 50% interest in Shabbos. You own a 50% interest in. If you actively, the Akum is working on my behalf on Shabbos. Masha'inkin, if I say, I have no interest on Shabbos. I don't have an ownership interest on Shabbos. I yield my ownership interest of Shabbos to you, and you in turn will yield your ownership interest on Sunday to me. Then I both say that works. We'll say that's why, again, I want to mention, again, if a person has a business that does operate, that has to operate on Shabbos and Yom Tov, a person must deal with this issue. Otherwise, just because I have a non-Jew involved or a non-Jew working, or even a non-Jewish partner, that is not enough. A person must actively assign ownership interest on Shabbos and Yom Tov through the mechanism of a shtar mechira to an akum, or the business has a serious, to be an explicit assignment of ownership interest of Shabbos to the Gentile. And the absence of that, Rabbi saying, creates a problem. On the other hand, the Gemara says, Ema Sefer, look at the end of the Raisa, in Bo Lecheshbin, Aser, Hastama Mutter. Rabbi said, what does the end of the Raisa say? That if they actively become to a cheshbon, so what does it mean they come to a cheshbon? Meaning, they begin reckoning out, well, you worked for Shabbosos, I worked for Sundays, that's when it's Asr. We'll say, why? Because the Jew is leveraging his Sundays against the Gentile Shabbosos. So therefore, it's clear that, again, there's a quid pro quo. That's when there's a problem. Hasta, mamutter. We'll say, rather, again, you can't infer anything from this brisa. So we'll say, just, again, although these halachas are more complicated, so we'll say, we would not rely on just a stam case. In order for the Jew ultimately, again, to be able to split the proceeds with the akum, there has to be an explicit assignment of Shabbos interest to the Gentile, and must be proactive. So on the front end of the business arrangement, there must be a clear and explicit understanding that on Shabbos, the business and its interest is assigned, or are assigned ultimately again to the akum. Hadrin Allah. We'll say Mazel Tov. Din behema bepundukosha odegochana. We'll say you cannot stable your animal in the pundak, in the inn, or in the stable of an akum. Why? Mibnei shechashudin ala ravia. Because good morning, Mr. Schoenfeld. Because ultimately, again, because the animals, the akum, ultimately again is chashud, is suspect for bestiality. For bestiality. Therefore, again, you cannot stable your animal with the akum. V'lo tisyachid isha iman mibnei shechashudin ala rayos. A woman should not be alone with an akum, ultimately, again, because of a concern of immorality. Now, we'll see in the Gemara, there's an Isser Yichud regardless. In other words, the Isser Yichud is not unique to an akum. Isser Yichud is by Jews also, so we'll discuss this. V'lo yisyachid adam imayin. And we'll say, similarly again, a man should also not be alone with an akum. Why? Mevnei shechashudin al shvichos damim. Because the akum is chashud ultimately again for bloodshed. So the woman shouldn't be alone with the akum. The man should not be alone with the akum. Ultimately of shvichos damim, of murder. We'll say amadeus. Here we go. Or minhu. So the Gemara raises a kasha. Or minhu. Lochin mehen behema lakusin. Now watch this. Bishlama. So meaning the idea over here is I could purchase an animal from an akum for any type of carbonic issue or any type of carbonic use, and I need not be concerned that the animal itself was ever used for avodah zara or ever engaged in bestiality. So says the Gemara, Bishlama muktsa v'ne'evad. I understand that I don't have to be worried that the animal was set aside for avodah zara or was worshipped. Why? Because im isa de'iktsie, v'im isa depalche, lovam azb'nei. Because at the end of the day, if the animal was actively set aside for avodah zara, or if the animal was worshipped, then what? Then what? It would not have been sold. Understand that the akum has incredible respect for his avodah zara also. So if he's going to go ahead and set aside an animal for avodah zara, or if an animal has worshipped for avodah zara, he's not selling it to a Jew. So if meaning again, out of respect for his deity, out of respect for his avodah zara. So therefore, if it's being sold, I understand that I don't have to worry about any issue regarding avodah zara. Which I will say, by the way, if you think about it, is an incredible testament to the ruchnius of the akum. I know that sounds strange. As I will say, people do all kinds of things for a profit, right? All kinds of things for a profit. Yet amazingly enough, what the Gemara is saying is, an akum takes his avodah zara seriously enough that he will not allow financial gain to go ahead and erode the sanctity of his avodah zara. I'll say this is mamish like Ezu Chacham lo made me call Adam. I will say this is the vart. I'll just say it very quickly. I think I mentioned this on one Erev Shabbos. I did. This is the Lublina Rav. Oh, remember the Lublina Rav from Parshas Vayishlach? Remember that one. Good. All right, so I'll say, so remember again, what does the pasuk say? Im Lavan Garti, right? Im Lavan Garti ve'echar ad ata. So remember, what does Rashi say? Im Lavan Garti, the Taryag mitzvah shamarti, v'lo lamarati mima'as of klum. So right, I lived with Lavan. I kept the Torah mitzvah. I didn't learn anything from his actions. So remember again, the Lublina Rav says, what is Yaakov saying? In Lavan Garti v'Torah mitzvah shmarti v'lo lamarati mimasav. So Lublina Rav says so beautifully that Yaakov Avinu was lamenting. In Lavan Garti v'Torah mitzvah shamarti v'lo lamarati mimasav. I should have learned from Lavan because I saw Lavan sinning all the time. And he always sinned with such hislavus. He always sinned with such passion. So I also taryag mitzvah shamarti. I kept mitzvahs also. I but nebach v'lo limarati mimasav. I should learn from Lavan the way Lavan sinned with such hislavus and passion. I should do mitzvahs in that same way. Taryag mitzvah shamarti. It's true. I kept all the mitzvahs. I was good behaviorally. But it was a krecht. V'lo limarati mimasav klum. If only I could take his passion for Averos and channel it into my Shmiras HaMitzvahs, how would I be? So I'll say this is an incredible Gemara. So over here you see that what's happening? So the Akum will not sell his animal that was set aside for Avodah Zara, even for a lot of money. Once it's a deity, once it's Kaddish, so ultimately again the Akum will not compromise his morality, I should say his religiosity, his theology for money. Incredible Yisod. Elo, Rova v'nir v'lechush, Rabbi will say, so, but why shouldn't I be concerned that maybe the animal engaged in immorality? In other words, that maybe the animal was violated or was a participant in bestiality. My animal with an akum. Why? Because an akum is suspect to engage in bestiality. So I'll say, if that's the case, how could I purchase an animal for carbonic purposes from the akum if the akum bless you? It is true that an akum will engage in bestiality, but what? Not with his own animal. Not with his own animal, right? Because again, if he engages in bestiality with his female animal, apparently again as a result of bestiality, often the animal becomes sterile. The female becomes sterile. An akum does not want to sterilize his own animal, and therefore again will refrain from engaging in bestiality with his own animal. Therefore, Abosai, I can buy an animal owned by the akum. It's the idea that ultimately, again, he would not have engaged in active bestiality with his own animal. As the Gemara says, that's fine for a female animal. But say, how could I purchase? Maybe then he will engage in bestiality with a male animal, because the issue of sterilization does not apply there. So I'll say, ultimately, this is actually very interesting. So apparently, again, after a human being engages in active bestiality with a male animal, apparently, again, it diminishes the vitality or physical strength of the male animal. So we'll say it could be I don't know, maybe it's traumatic for the animal. I'm not sure what it is. But Lamais, again, it goes ahead. The male, literally, Machishin Babasar means the animal loses some of its body mass. In other words, it becomes weaker. So therefore, I will say, bottom line, the Gemara says that at the end of the day, you could purchase the animal from the akum. Why? Because the akum is not going to engage in active bestiality with his own animal, because it compromises the animal. For the female, you could potentially sterilize her, and for the male, ultimately, again, it weakens the animal. Therefore, I could buy a carbon from him, ultimately, again, without the chashash animal was violated. Ella, hadisanya. What about that which we have learned? Lochin behema meirah shelahen. So I'll say ultimately again. So sorry, I forgot. I apologize. There was a sponsorship today. The shir was dedicated by Mayor and Adina Schwartzbaum as a zechus for the refuah name of Nachshon Meir ben Tamima Chaya Sarah Shlomit. We hope that on the merit of our Talmud Torah, he together with Kol Choli Yisrael have a complete and enduring refuah. Okay, so says the Gemara, Elahad Sanya, Lochin Behem Meirash. Let's go back for just a second. What about the fact that we said before, or that we learned in a brisa, that you could also purchase an animal from the shepherd of an akum, from an akum shepherd? I lechosh dilma ravala. Why aren't we concerned that maybe the shepherd will have violated the animal as well? To which the Gemara says, Roa shalahen misyari mishum hefsid schar. We'll say same idea. The shepherd also is not going to go ahead and violate the animal. Why? Because at the end of the day, the shepherd does not want to lose out on his wages. Elahad desanya a mosrim behema lo roa shalahen. But 1 second, we learn another verse. We'll say that a Jew cannot give his animal over to a Gentile, to an akum shepherd. Why not? We'll say out of a concern that the akum shepherd is going to violate the animal. So lema roa shalahen misyar mishum hefsid schar. We'll say, why don't we say that at the end of the day, or you should be able to give over your Jewish animal, so to speak, your Jewish animal owned by a Jew, to an akum shepherd, and not be concerned that the akum is going to violate the animal because of hefsid schar. To which the Gemara says something very interesting. Inhu diyadi bahadadi mirsasi. So both say, when the akum shepherd is watching the animal of an akum owner, he will not violate the animal. Why? Because they're both saying, one akum knows about it. An akum knows about this stuff. The akum owner will be able to know if the shepherd violated the animal. Unfortunately, I just want to point out, as I mentioned before, when Chazal say things like this, this is not Chazal speaking disparagingly about an akum. This is Chazal speaking about realities. I know it sounds strange to us and it sounds ridiculously depraved to us. But I say these are the realities. Chazal is saying we see these things actively occurring. These behaviors were prevalent in idolatrous society. So what does the Gemara effectively say? Akum. So if an akum owner gives over his animals to the akum roa, so the akum owner will know what the akum roa has been up to. So because of that, the akum roa is mirsa. So we'll say there's a fear. There's a fear. Look at Rashi says, so because the akum owner himself might be into the bestiality stuff, so he knows exactly what the roa, what the shepherd is up to. Therefore, again, the shepherd is scared to do anything to the animal because he knows that he will be discovered by the owner. On the other hand, anan de lo yadinan behu lo mirsasi. On the other hand, that we Jews who do not know these things regarding bestiality, so essentially the shepherd could pull a fast one on us. We wouldn't really know the difference if the animal was violated by the shepherd or not. Therefore, again, the shepherd knows he could do something and ultimately get away with it, and therefore the Brisa says that a Jew should not hand over his animal to a Gentile shepherd. Amar Rabba. So the Rabba says, Hainu Darmi Inshi, this is what people say, Michtiva Galala Baza. We'll say, just like the piece of marble is afraid of the chisel. We'll say, so what that means is marble is a very strong material. And under normal circumstances, nothing could go ahead and break it. But if you bring the chisel against it, the chisel has the ability to make a scratch in it. Ragla bechavre yada. One slanderer knows his fellow as well. So I'll say, look at Rashi for just a moment. Rashi says, Michtava gala baza ragla bechavre yada. Michtav shekaran garfi she'al barizol korev rosh mesakalo shayish. Klomar, hashayish shukashi garim in ha-michtav So the idea is that things are only scared of other things that they know its weakness. So the marble is only scared of the chisel. One slanderer is only scared of another slanderer. The idea being you're only scared of someone who knows your secrets, your dark secrets. So the idea is that the akum shepherd of Osai is only fearful of who? Of another akum. Why? Because sometimes they're both into the same stuff. Right? And therefore, again, the akum owner will know if something's been going on with his animal. The akum is not scared of the Jew. Why? Because at the end of the day, the Jew is not really going to know if the bestiality occurred or not, because the Jew, Baruch Hashem, is not into such things. Good. So the Gemara goes like, "Yachi scharim in the kevos lo nisbin techashinon dilma mir vala iluye kevan demigri ba mir sesa." So I'll say if that's the case, ultimately again, so you should be able to go ahead and what? You should be able to purchase. It's actually very interesting. From an akum, you should be able to purchase male animals from women, right? So yachi scharim in the kevos lo nisbin techashinon dilma mir vala. So listen to this. So we said before that you should not purchase male animals from a female akum. What are we concerned about both sides? We're concerned always about the same thing, which is what? Bestiality. But one second. So the Gemara says, Kevan de migri ba mirsasa. Both sides. Apparently, if a woman engages in an act of bestiality with an animal, the animal follows her around. Right? So the animal becomes attached to her. If people see the animal following the woman around, then what? People are going to know something is up. So we'll say she doesn't want that. In other words, even if she's going to go ahead and see, we'll say most people, even if we're going to engage in Averis behind closed doors, we want to project an image of piety publicly. So even if this woman is going to engage in active bestiality, when this ox is following her around every single place she goes, it's going to be a shtickle awkward for her, right? So therefore, again, I will say we assume that people at the end of the day don't want to engage in things which ultimately, again, will shame them publicly. So therefore, the Gemara suggests is as follows: is that Lamaisa, you should be able to buy a male animal from a female idolatress. Why? Because the say if she really did commit the act of bestiality, the animal would follow her around. If the animal's not following her around, that tells us what? That she didn't engage in active bestiality. And the Hadatani Rav Yosef, Rabbi says, listen to this, but that's what Rav Yosef said. Armalta lo tir bikalba, a widow should not go ahead and have a dog. Why not? Rashi says over here. Rashi says, lo tir bikalba, shematis ave v'tarbi enuava. Because Rabbi say, perhaps ultimately again, she will engage in an act of bestiality with the dog. Rabbi say, what does that mean? Stam, a person is not nechshad. We'll say the idea is, we'll get into this a bit more. The idea is, I will say that there are certain things that we say by an almana that she should not do because she is alone, lest people begin to gossip. People begin to gossip in all kinds of ways. Therefore, there are certain things that she should not do, lest people begin to gossip. So she shouldn't have a dog, lest people begin to gossip. And Rabbi says she should not offer lodging to a single yeshiva student. Which Rabbi say, again, even assuming there's not an issue of yichud, she should not have a male boarder in the house. Bishlama bar beirav tzniyalah. So we'll say, I understand why she shouldn't have a boarder there, because ultimately, again, since it's a yeshiva student, she feels she could engage in an act of immorality and he won't say anything to anyone. However, again, kalba kevan migraba mirsisa. We'll say, but if a dog, what are we concerned about? That she's going to engage in an act of bestiality? We'll say, if she does so, as we just said before, then what? The dog is going to follow around everywhere. If that's the case, we'll say, now again, I want to be clear. All right, well, let me clarify this just a moment. So why don't we say that she has a disincentive to go and engage in bestiality because the dog is going to follow around everywhere? To which the Gemara says, no. I'm sorry. Kevan dechishajle umsa umasr chabasra. Meimar amri inshi had misrach abasra mishum umsa dekamasich. The Rebbe will say why? Because dogs follow people around for all kinds of reasons. Most notably, what the Rebbe will say, that the owner feeds them. So therefore, the dog following around the individual is not indicative of having engaged in active immorality, but rather, again, if a person feeds the dog, well, so that ultimately, again, is why the dog follows them around. Nekevos eitzon nekevos my taima lo miachtinan. So we'll say, using this logic, why can't I stable a female animal with a female akum. Right? So we'll say in the cave, eats in the cave. So we'll say in that case, ultimately what? There's no chashash of immorality. We'll say, right? There's no immorality that could occur. So if that's the case, why should there be a problem? Ultimately, again, of a female animal by a female akum, to which the Gemara says, we'll say, and this is wild stuff. Amar Ukva Bar Chama, mipnei sha'ovdei kochavim mitzuyin eitzel n'shei chavreim. Because I will say, ultimately, again, ovdei kochavim were exceptionally immoral. And adultery was commonplace. Adultery was commonplace, which I will say again, unfortunately, we live in a similar society as well. Adultery was commonplace. So they would often frequent their friends' wives. And what happens? One time the adulterer comes to the house of the adulteress and she's not there. So she's not there. But who is there? Who is there? We'll say the animal. We'll say, by the way, just so you understand, it's Pashat, like I just want to point out, it's Pashat not a joke. You understand? This is the depravity of society. And we'll say, lest you shrug it off, and we'll say, I hate to say it. We're not so far off in our general society from levels of depravity like this as well. This is talking about societal depravity. This is not poking fun. This is not akum. This is societal depravity that Chazal are talking about, we'll say. And again, just this is mamish like stone. This is what, and again, it's scary because a lot of things that we see around us, we'll say, Chas Shalom seem to point in depravity as well. So what happens? So the akum comes to commit adultery. Opam Shena Motza, he doesn't find her, the adulteress. Umotzas HaBehema, he finds the behema, the female behema, Varova, and we'll say ultimately again violates the behema. Vibaisema, we'll say this is even more of her. Damar Mar, Chaviva Alein Behemton Sheisrael, Yosem Inishoseyan. Because we'll say, and this is an incredibly dramatic statement, that sometimes ultimately again the akum will choose the Jewish animal over again his own wife. And we'll say, now what does that mean? So we'll say what that means ultimately again is just pointing to a societal depravity. That is what does it literally mean, that the akum would rather have relations with a Jewish animal than his own wife. The Pasha said it's not to be understood literally, but rather what it means is just understand. We'll say, what this tells you something amazing about immorality. See, at a certain point in time, when a person plummets to the depths of immorality, so rationality also goes out the window as well. Meaning, a person says to themselves, obviously, just any normal person, even if a person is a Baal Taiva and wants to commit, it doesn't make sense. Meaning, it doesn't make sense that a person is going to choose an animal over another human being. But I will say, Elamai, you see that at a certain point in time, when a person plummets to the depths of depravity, rational thought is no longer there. Once taiva, once desire takes over, and a person is just driven by taiva, so we'll say all kinds of craziness unfolds. So the Gemara goes right there. Then Rabbi Yochanan, because we'll say, where does this taiva come from? This is amazing. Then Rabbi Yochanan, B'shah Shabal Nachash Al Chava. We'll say, this is a different narrative from the Adam and Chava's sin. In this narrative, Rabbi say, the Nachash doesn't only entice Chava to sin with words, but remember again, the Nachash actually engages in an act of intimacy with Chava. Rashi points out that the way we learn this from is that Chava used the lashon of Hanachash Hishiani or Hisiani. It was a lashon of Nisuin. That ultimately, again, the Nachash violated Chava. Sheba Nachash al Chava hitil bazuama. The Nachash infused an impurity into Chava. And it was that impurity is ultimately, again, where man derives his drive for immorality from. So why is it then that these drives for bestiality are just by Akum? Why don't we? Why doesn't Am Yisrael have these same drives as Rabbi said? Listen to this. It's amazing. To which the Gemara says, Yisrael Shamdal Har Sinai, Pasku Zumasan. Ovdei Kochavim Shalo Amdal Har Sinai, Lo Pasku Zumasan. It was like Klal Yisrael we stood at Har Sinai, Kabbalah Satorah. That at least, although it did not remove the desire for sin, at least it removed the incredible desire for depraved immorality, like bestiality. The Akum, which did not go ahead and, the Akum, who did not receive the Torah, ultimately going to resist, is the chayt of immorality, is the desire for immorality. So we'll say, apparently again, Maimar Har Sinai was effective enough to neutralize at least our desire for the most depraved forms of immorality, like bestiality.